My name is David Biddle, and last summer I was at the Midwest Renewable Energy Fair where the Revenge of the Electric Car debuted with Chris Payne, and he showed it to all of us out there in Wisconsin. So when Daniel said it was going to be here in Brattleboro, I said, I've got to be there. And this time I've got my nice new electric car to bring with me. This car is a Chevrolet Bolt. It was built in Michigan. In fact, I visited the factory in Hamtramck, which is near Detroit, and they're building them there. They're selling them. They've sold about 10,000 of them so far, and they hope to sell 20 or 30,000 more this year. They've got orders in Europe for about 7,000, and it's the best car I've ever owned. It's the nicest thing to drive. It's got the acceleration of a sports car. Because of the electric engine, the torque is very high, and it also, I can go from scratch, I can go 400 miles in this thing because it has a gas tank and a generator in the back that comes on when I use up all the electric charge that's in the batteries. The generator comes on and provides electric current to run the electric motor. It only runs on an electric motor inside.
There's a small story behind why I was invited to do this. I've never actually hosted a after-movie talk before, but I'd say around 25 or 30 years ago, I started getting interested in electric cars, and it always seemed to be right around the corner where there was, new batteries coming online and new kinds of things, and so I started working on my skill set, and I learned how to weld, and I learned about computers, and took various detours along the way, and got a workshop together, a milling machine, and all kinds of stuff. And so it's been 25 or 30 years now, and we're starting to see real electric cars. I still haven't built one myself, and when Tom and I went to visit someone who actually does build electric cars, his name is Stephen Miracle, I walk in and I said, I want to do this, and he goes, no you don't, because it really is a lot of work, putting these things together. And anyway, enough about me. So how about we just go around the room and say your name and why you're here? I don't know if that works for people, or if there's an interest.
Questions or comments to share.
Or that too. You want to just start off?
And no one should feel obligated to speak, but no one should feel obligated not to speak, I guess.
Go ahead. David. That way. Go ahead, David.
I'm David Biddle. I own a couple of electric vehicles. I have a Zap truck at my house that has a limited range of about 25 or 30 miles. I couldn't drive that up here tonight. I drove the Volt up here. And I was interested in the questions I was getting from people before we started. And a lot of them were about infrastructure, charging infrastructure. Well, most of these electric vehicles can be plugged into 110 volts and get some kind of a charge, a few miles here and there. You get double the charge or better with 240 volts, and there are more and more of those charging stations being put online. And that's happening. I can see it just popping up like mushrooms in the night. I see more and more of that capability coming around. And then I have what's called a range extended vehicle that has an engine in it. So when I run out of electricity and run my battery, run 45 miles as I did to get up here, I can switch over to gas, and I'll go another 350 miles on gas. But somebody like the Nissan Leaf would have to plan the trip to get up here, and he might have had to plug in when he got here if I'd brought a Leaf. I'd love to have a Leaf. That's going to be my next car.
And plugging in takes a while to charge up. Right?
Yeah, it takes a while to charge up. It's 3.5 hours at 240 volts to fully charge my vehicle. And 10 hours at 110 volts to fully charge the Volt.
When Mother Earth News was just getting started, there was an article about a car just like yours. It was basically an electric car, but it had a little gasoline generator in the back that ran at a constant speed, and it charged up the batteries whenever you needed it. So it was basically an extended range electric vehicle. So they had designs for these things years and years ago, and that's why it was such a pity to see the EV1 get destroyed, because it was a great car and it was upgradable. You can throw in a new battery pack that would extend its range, and every time new battery designs came out, they could put in something new and you'd get a much better car. So
But one of the most interesting and fundamental things in all of this is Edison developed a battery for the electric car in 1913. And that car, what's his face, the late night talk show guy, Jay Leno has one in his garage. He goes 100 miles on that car with the Edison batteries, which you wash the plates out of. And that's the same range you're getting today with electric cars. The trick is to get the battery technology to change and mature. And I think with all the investment and interest in that, that's going to happen in the next 10 years anyway, perhaps.
Has anyone ever rented a Zipcar? You know, one of those like rental cars that sort of, it's not the Hertz, it's not.
They're doing that now with the smart car. The electric smart car is being deployed. It's in several cities on the West Coast, and also they're coming to Washington D.C. with a Zipcar that's it's a smart car that's electric.
That would be
They'll go
great,
100
because
miles.
not everyone here could afford a full electric car, but we could probably all afford to rent one. You know,
Or call me up and I'll bring it up and we'll go for a drive. You buy me
right.
lunch, I'll let you drive it. How about that for you?
Good deal.
Danny.
I don't know how many people here saw the precursor to this film, Who Killed the Electric Car?
Oh, yeah.
But they sort of alluded to it at the beginning with the story of the EV1s all being recalled and then crushed. So I found myself watching this film, and whenever I started to feel optimistic, I'm thinking, what? They're just getting our hopes up again, and why you know, the forces that want to see the combustion engine vehicles continue to live on, why are they not just going to do something as preposterous? Because that story of the EV1 seemed just as wonderful and logical, and of course the time has come. And then amazingly, they you know, manifested the resources to round them all up and take them all off the road and destroy them all.
Yeah, all of the EV1s were leased. They weren't
They were
sold,
leased,
so
yes.
there was the recall was much easier, and you know, they were early cars, and there were problems with some of them, mostly battery problems, which they upgraded and solved. But you know, there was collusion with the automakers and the legislature in California, and originally California had started out with a very aggressive, very far-reaching standards for emissions, and so car companies had to come out with something like an electric car, but then they realized once they did that, they sort of let the genie out of the bag, that the fact that they could build an electric car that actually worked and people liked was a bad thing at the time. Now it's not such a bad thing.
It was bad because they didn't need all the infrastructure of all the oil changes and all the upkeep which serves the industry well.
It does. Just there's a big list of things you don't have in an electric car that you do have in hybrids and other internal combustion engine cars.
I guess the quicker you get these charging stations built and different entities investing in those, and these big factories employing lots of people to make batteries and things in Tennessee, then the sooner you can feel comfortable that that whole industry and new technology is here to stay.
Yeah. I mean, you'd probably have to get creative with charging stations, because the 5-minute fill-up doesn't exist, and the quick charge is 3 or 4 hours. You know,
Well, they
so
can
just
get 20 or 30 minutes. If you use 480 volts, the Leaf is eligible for a quick charge. And I think that maybe the Mazda, the Mitsubishi is too. They can charge up to 80% of their full range in half an hour on those charging stations. The Volt doesn't have that capability.
But a good bit of planning is probably in order. Like you just don't go on a trip not knowing where your next charging station might be. You know, it
There are
brings
people now on the West Coast that are trying to drive down the West Coast, hitting those fast charge stations along the way, so they can travel several hundred miles in one shot.
Could either of you say, or could anyone here say, what would be the cost these days of a brand new Leaf or a Volt?
The Volt would have a sticker price of about $40,000, and you get $7,500 back from the federal government. So the net's about $32,500. You could easily own a Volt. The Leaf has a list price of about 35 or so, you can buy one. Take off 7,500, so you're down to 27.5. The Mitsubishi Niev, which is just starting to be sold, they sold about 100 of them in the country. That one has a $29,000 price, and that's down to about $22,000. Supposedly, the Smart Car is coming out later this year for $22,000 list, and then you'll get your $7,500 back. You'll get about $15,000 for an electric vehicle. I can't believe it, and I'll believe it when I see it, but that's what I've been reading about the new Smart Car.
And they're so cute.
They are cute. I drove a Smart Car electric one about 6 months ago in Hartford.
That's the two-seater?
The two-seater, yeah.
David, have you heard of a car called the Kestrel?
Well, that's
Have you heard of the Kestrel car?
Kestrel. I'm not familiar with that one, no.
It's a car that they're building the body out of industrial hemp, and as some people know, I'm championing
Oh, my
Bristol.
goodness.
Let me show this, and they also have Lotus and Mercedes. You can pass it over to that are the bodies are made out of industrial hemp that is stronger. So I'm wondering where these two industries can converge, where we have the lighter weight car bodies and also the green production of doing it with industrial hemp. Hopefully, it will be right here in Vermont.
Well, one of the key things is to make make vehicles lighter so you get more mileage out of them. And I have hemp ice cream every night for dinner.
That tempting, yes. Yeah.
I love it.
It's really good.
It's very good.
Does anybody know why the Prius didn't come up in this? Because
Prius?
it's a hybrid as well, isn't it?
It's a hybrid, but it's not, the Prius today doesn't have any electric range to it.
Oh, really?
There's a new version coming out that will have 10 or 11 miles of electric range.
There is a conversion for the Prius that
Yeah.
adds a larger battery or replaces the existing battery and some electronics to fool it into driving more on electric-only mode. And so the Prius has the capability of doing that. Unlike my little car, which is the Insight, you have to be running the engine in order to go anywhere because the whole engine and the electric motor are in line in the transmission.
And the Prius on its own is a huge success. It sold over 1 million Priuses in the US alone and 2 million worldwide. It's a huge business success, but it's half the cost of the Bolt. The Bolt's $40,000, the Prius is $20,000.
Well, the Prius owners love their cars too. There's a lot of loyalty,
Yeah.
and it's earned loyalty.
Oh yeah, it gets 50 miles to the gallon.
Well, it's also low maintenance.
Is it?
Low maintenance and inexpensive maintenance. And that's a
That's-
pretty good combination.
Absolutely.
You've got to hand it to them on that one.
I didn't find that with mine.
Oh, you didn't?
Oh, because I do get the 50 miles to the gallon on the highway, but I only go 55,
Mm-hmm.
and that really increased my miles per gallon.
What year Prius do you have?
I have an 02.
Yeah, see, that's very early in the game.
Yes.
And those were not as good as the later. The later ones are better, supposedly. They've been making new versions and they've upgraded them considerably.
But it's been a high maintenance car. It has to go into the shop every 5,000 miles. Depending on what they do to it.
Trade that one in.
The what?
Trade it in. Danny in the back.
Is there, is there an opportunity for some companies to make money on the charging stations? It would seem like as soon as somebody can figure out how to make money on the charging stations the way gas companies have gas stations, then then you have another whole force
There are a
driving.
whole bunch of people doing that. Kulu has a network. And I was up in Rutland 2 weeks ago and I found a Kulu station and I wanted to charge. I couldn't get it. I called the 800 number on the charger. They turned it on for me remotely and let me charge for free. I charged the car there. And they mailed me a card. And then when I was in Montpelier last week, I used that card to charge for free in a Kulu charger. But eventually they're going to have a network of Kulus that are going to figure out a way to charge at a rate that people will pay. General Electric has also started a business making chargers for cars. It's a big deal. General Electric is buying 12,000. They're buying 25,000 electric vehicles. They're buying 12,000 volts, which is nice.
I think one of the big issues with chargers is that you need a standard interface. Like with gasoline, it's really easy. You just take the nozzle out and you stick it in the little hole on the side of your car. but with different car makers and different kinds of
No,
plugs,
they've standardized on
Are
the
they all-
J1772,
Oh, good,
which is the
great.
one that's in my car out
which
there.
was not on the EV1, which was,
No.
that was a completely different kind of thing.
animal, but
Right.
they've standardized on the J1772 for level 1 and level 2. There's a battle going on now about level 3, which is the high-speed charging.
Mhm.
And I think that's been resolved.
Good.
But all these stations use the 1772, just you can go anywhere and plug in. Yeah.
That's good.
Walgreens took out the old ones that they had, and Costco did too. They took out the old ones, they're putting in new stations, and they're being subsidized by the federal government to do that.
Is there a potential niche industry for converting your gasoline cars over to electric like that guy was doing? Because that was pretty compelling. to hear him say.
There is quite a number of people doing garage conversions, and there's several different cars that are classically used, Volkswagens and little Geo Metros, and I've got 3 or 4 cars just sitting in my garage, in my driveway rather, waiting to be converted. Of course, I have no space to do it and no time because all of my sidetracked activities have taken on other proportions. But there are a lot of people doing exactly that, and there are kits you can buy that help with some of the like the plates that you need to mount your motor on the transmission, things like that. So yeah, it is a cottage industry.
You would think that's a cottage industry made for Vermont, too, for southern Vermont. You know, people who have driven their Subarus into the ground and are ready to take the engine out
Yeah.
and put in a battery.
You know, the problem is you don't want to throw in a lot of money at a car that's seen so much
I see.
activities, especially in Vermont. Cars don't last that long, so if you're going to pick a donor car, you want to pick one that's in reasonably good shape.
From Arizona.
From somewhere out west.
With as Stephen Miracle, who Daniel introduced in the beginning of this discussion, said, the great thing about the Volt or about the Leaf is that the car has integral in the design, the weight of the batteries considered. And gasoline engine cars are not designed for that kind of weight, and you can't just put the batteries in the engine compartment, you gotta put them underneath. So, because it really affects the way the car travels and the way it handles. So it's a pretty complicated thing to do for any car. And this gentleman, I don't know your name. Tom mentioned while we were outside that there's an easily marketable kit to convert a Volkswagen Bug. And, you know, but you gotta work out the bugs. It's not a very profitable, probably, cottage industry to convert your dead Subaru. And it's also pretty expensive. The batteries cost about 10 grand.
Nice.
So, you know, if you're considering, I could buy half of a new car, that wasn't, that I wouldn't have to replace, the wheel bearings on and think about rust and all that stuff. So it's unfortunately not that simple in Vermont.
You can also lease these cars. The Leaf and the Volt can be leased for about $350 a month, which is pretty reasonable. You're limited in the number of miles you can put on it in that time. But both those cars are available in leasing programs, I know. And the other ones will be too. I don't know about the Mitsubishi, but I know the other ones, the Mercedes, the smart car will be on affordable lease too.
Well, into what you said about the car kits, you can buy a kit, an eBay, for Volkswagen Bug. The kit itself is $2,300. It doesn't include the batteries and a few other odds and ends. But it's essentially all you need to convert an old Volkswagen, air-cooled Volkswagen.
To electric, huh?
To electric, yeah.
Tom, would you tell us about your electric pickup experience?
Yes, actually I bought an electric pickup from Steve Miracle in Vermont, and ran it for about 2.5 years, from Marlboro down to Brattleboro and back each day. And I was able to charge at work. So the ideal situation for an electric vehicle is having a commute of fixed miles that you know that you're going to go every day. And I was able to change my route to go by grocery stores and do my errands and things. The downside is that the batteries are fairly expensive. My truck took 24 12-volt batteries, so it's about $3,000 for the batteries. And I was hoping to get 4 to 5 years out of them. I got about 2.5 with the commute that I was doing. But it was a pretty severe commute because it was about a 1,500-foot difference in elevation. It was great going from Marlboro to Brattleboro, but going from Brattleboro to Marlboro was not so great. And,
Where's the truck now?
The truck is actually parked in Putney, either waiting for new batteries or a new owner that has a commute that I don't particularly have at this time. Some of the other issues with it, it had a ceramic heater, which used a lot of juice from the batteries to run. So in the wintertime, I ended up forfeiting using the heater in the cab to use the defroster so I could see out the window to go. So I bolstered myself thinking that it was still better than a one-horse open sleigh. But I usually had 2 or 3 coats on and mittens and was pretty well bundled up. But I was able to run through the winter. It had electric blankets underneath the battery packs, so when it was plugged in, it kept the batteries warm, and it didn't continue while you were driving, but in most cases you're going to drive for an hour or less. It had a 45-mile range at 45 miles per hour on the flat. And it was very interesting. It had an amp gauge in it that you could gauge how much juice you were drawing from your batteries. And it took just a very slight let up on the accelerator so that you would hardly notice the difference in your speed, but you could decrease the amount of juice you were using substantially. So that was really an eye-opener. And they're great for actually teaching people how to drive conservatively and use less power. Because if you don't do that, you may not get to where you want to go.
When you got it, the battery technology was not as advanced. If you were to put in new batteries now, like the type that they're using, the lithium-ion, would you get a better range?
You probably would get a better range, but I think the
batteries...
batteries...
you need a different charging infrastructure, and you need a different electrical infrastructure to make that work with lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah.
Well, you need a different charge controller, but you probably wouldn't need that much difference.
The nice thing with the truck I had, it had the chargers on board.
Yeah.
So all you had to do was plug in. I think with the EV1, you actually had to go to a special charging station. I don't think they had the chargers on board. And I think that was a big issue, that people would go to a charging station and it was malfunctioning or not working for some reason, and they were stuck.
Well, they had inductive charging paddles that they sort of slid into the cars, and so that was only in California and nowhere else. So it was a very immature technology industry. So it's really great to hear from David that they've standardized, because that really is the Achilles heel.
Is a big deal. Yeah. Because I can go anywhere and plug into 110 and have that connector connect right into my car. Or I can, whenever you go to a 240 station, they always have a plug on. Do you have a question?
Well, I wondered how much efficiency is a driver in the development of these cars. Like, are they always trying to make light cars, or are they also making heavier luxury electric cars?
They're going in all directions. The Chevy came out with a Volt. The next product they're bringing out is a Cadillac with the same powertrain, but it's going to be a 2-seater, and it's called the ELR. I've seen it. My son's working on it already out in Michigan, and that'll be out probably late next year, I think, the ELR. So they're going to try and go upscale with it. It'll probably go further than what they're doing now on electric, and it'll be a wonderful driving car experience for people. The whole idea that they're trying to work to get behind and push this technology is that it's a wonderful driving experience. It's also electric. You know, they're coupling it to a high-end driving experience. That's what General Motors is doing. But they're also bringing out a small car called a Spark, and that's coming. I think that's coming within the next 12 months. And that car is going to be electric and very small, have a 100-mile range, strictly electric, no gas engine at all in it. And that'll compete with all the other electric cars that are out there. And the Spark has just started to be sold as a regular car, gasoline car in America. And it's gotten good reviews. It's a nice little car. But it's going to be an electric version of it coming next. And that'll be General Motors' first smaller electric car as well. But that has to be light, and it has to be, good price and all the other things you need to sell an electric vehicle. And that'll compete with the Nissan Leaf and probably be cheaper than the Leaf, and also the Mitsubishi car.
David, could I just ask you one question? Trevor brought it. What is the difference in the technology between the Volt, which has gasoline and electric, and the Prius, which has gasoline and electric?
Well, the Prius is an electric assist system. So the Prius doesn't ever really 100% run on electric. All right, it's an assist system. Honda has the same kind of thing, and the other hybrids that are on the market are that way. They get regenerative. They recharge the battery from regenerative thing. They stop at the stoplights. They have electric that helps them do things more efficiently and make better use of the gas engine. But it's never running 100% as an pure electric vehicle. Although one of the new iterations of the Prius that's coming out this year is going to run 10 or 11 miles on electricity. And that's the Prius on 4 or 5 or 6. There's different numbers. I've lost track of what they're doing, but that's going to be pretty interesting. But still, it's not the same. The Chevrolet Volt is called a range extender electric car. So it's primarily an electric vehicle. It's always running on an electric motor, and it's just running sometimes off of a generator that's feeding the electric motor with electricity.
Thanks.
Does that make sense?
So I just want to know how many people have gotten to ride an electric car? Anyone?
Straight electric or?
How many people would like to own an electric car?
Eventually.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Through the audience participation here.
So we should probably wrap up momentarily, and we should probably, David, have you leave your contact information so that people can take you out to lunch.
That's right. Take me to lunch so I can get a ride in a car. I want to sell lots of books to keep my son employed.
Daniel, thank you for arranging this tonight and for being here.
Sure. The Chevy dealer will also give you a ride.
Okay.
There you go. It'd be harder to take them out for lunch. It wouldn't be as much fun.
But also, all of the dealers that are selling the Leaf, the Volt, whatever, the places I've gone to, they let me take the car by myself and just take off with it.
Yeah.
I must have an honest face, but I've done that with the Leaf. I spent 45 minutes with the Leaf about 6 weeks ago. I spent 45 minutes with a Volt before I bought one at a place.
It said they know you can only go about 50 miles.
That's right. They can call OnStar to find out where I am.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the show. And if you haven't seen the first movie, Who Killed the Electric Car, we probably can arrange a viewing of that at some point in Putney or here.
At the Putney Library.
It's at the Putney Library as well. Yes, I have a copy. So
We gotta do it at Solarfest. We gotta show both of them and talk about it.
yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, this is a good follow-up movie. I think they left a little room for a third sequel, though.
Yes, they did.
Well, thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Smacking your horse.